The alleged Kardashian curse has struck once again, and y'all, this time it showed absolutely no mercy. We've all heard of the Kardashians ruining the lives and careers of anyone that is seen in proximity to them. But this time when we say ruined, we mean ruined. In case you weren't aware, over the past month or so, a man has been seen all over Hollywood Boulevard holding a sharpied up sign that reads Kim Kardashian ruinedmylife.com, prompting onlookers to wonder if this is some kind of marketing tactic for Kimberly? How and why? Predatory business practices, planned deception, and unjust rulings is how. Wanting early access to a potential life-changing tool would leave Kim Kardashian big-eyed, and David Liebensohn stressed, depressed, $2 million in debt, wifeless, and homeless. And yep, it's all Kim Kardashian's fault. We don't know whether to gasp in disbelief or relieve a tiresome sigh. The Kardashians aren't as ethical as they claim to be? Tell us something we don't know. This one right here is giving every bit of Netflix documentary, and we wouldn't be surprised if those over at Netflix headquarters have already dialed up David's line to bid him offers. In case you weren't aware, a man who goes by the name of David Liebensohn has been seen all over the corridors of Arizona, Oklahoma, and Hollywood, California, yielding a handwritten sign that reads, Kim Kardashian ruinedmylife.com. Harpo, what is this? Well, if you actually go to the web address, you'll be met with a huge 2013 looking banner with a headline that says, Kim K ruined my life just so she could have her face and butt as an emoji. I have nothing to lose anymore. And neither do we. So what exactly is going on here? Well, this Kardashian tale starts off innocently enough. The rise of the Instagram influencer took over IG's superficial platform in the early 2010s. And with the growing popularity of social media content creators and celebrities alike came the abundance of comments, both positive and negative. Lucky for those behind the post, one man, David Liebensohn, along with his cousin Dan and Dan's friend Narayan, came up with a brilliant idea to create an app which censors the comments section on the gram. Before Instagram created the option to censor its comments, Censorgram was being used by thousands of users to filter out their comment sections, Kim Kardashian being one of them. One random evening, Kim's right-hand man, at the time, Jonathan Cheban, which you may or may not have seen on episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, reached out to David via Censorgram's official IG account, under a post vouching for Kimberly's interest in doing business with David and the app. Time passed, and after deleting the comment thread Jonathan had been in, Jonathan reached out yet again asking why the thread had been deleted. Probably because the Censorgram owners didn't want to be putting their business out there all willy-nilly? I mean, doing business with someone of Kim Kardashian's caliber isn't something you just want to put out there. But hey, what do we know? After discussing further details, Jonathan was playing no games, persuading the mess out of David and company. Me, you, and Kim. She can make it huge and get us to 100 mil. Apparently, Kim wanted to be the face of the app, insisting on wanting to be a part of something huge to stop cyberbullying, and thought Censorgram would be the perfect app to do so. Other high-profile celebrities also wanted in on the action. However, they went with Kim's offer, and soon enough, David and his business partners were on a flight they themselves paid for out of their own pockets to Calabasas to meet up with the one and only Kim Kardashian and her mother, Kris Jenner. None of that looking around the mansion protocol. It was straight to the back of the meeting room where David, Dan, and Narayan were handed Fiji water before sitting down at a huge table with Mama Kris, their assistants, and several attorneys seated on opposing ends. Although they were there to discuss Kim's potential involvement in the already up and running Censorgram app, David at the time had already been working on several other projects, including 2 different emoji apps. Emojis at that time were still fairly new to the world in 2014, the year David was sitting in front of Kim K, and the year he pitched the idea of Kimmoji to Kim. She loved the idea. David's pitch was a success, and she along with her team agreed to be equal partners on the Kimmoji app. Smiles and laughter filled the room as the deal on Kimmoji was sold. 60%, 40%. David and his team obtaining the 60 and Kim and hers getting 40, as well as 50-50 sealed for Censorgram. Given a verbal agreement, both sides were satisfied and pending contracts were yet to come. Once David and his crew were miles high in the sky and back to their residential states, things would take a significant turn for the worst. More time would pass before a phone call from Kim held David's attention, wondering if he had yet to file a trademark for the apps. Informing her that he had yet to do so, Kim insisted that she take care of it. Unfortunately, that never did quite happen because, come to find out, yeah, the trademark would eventually be filed. But Miss Kimberly Noel decided to abruptly cut the Sensorgram creators out of the deal entirely. After their joyous phone call, Kim called David back about 5 minutes later with a completely different tone. "Who is Ryan and why is he spreading my business all over Chicago?" Confused, David didn't know what to say. More words were exchanged, and once the call ended, David was left anxious and highly confused. What just happened? Well, apparently one of David's business partners, Narayan, was so excited to be working with Kim that he got to bragging to one of his little friends about working with Kim. The text exchange featured a screenshot of a few words on a page Kim used on the Sensorgram app. However, no user handle or private information was leaked. The friend sent it to some people he knew in Chicago who actually knew Kanye and Kim personally, and it eventually reached Kim. The innocent screenshot let off a domino effect of pushback and was somehow in violation of their agreement. Who knew an innocent text would cause so much turmoil further down the road? Before he knew it, David, Dan, and Narayan were being threatened to be sued for $5 million each if they didn't hand over all rights to Kimoji and the right to use proprietary IP for Sensorgram. What do you do when one of California's most powerful families, and arguably one of the most powerful families in the United States, sends you letters threatening to sue you for millions if you don't hand over the rights to the apps you created? Well, you hand over the rights to the apps you created. And that's exactly what they, minus David, did. Scared to lose their life savings, investments, and families, Dan and Ryan, or Narayan, agreed to Kim's attorney Marty Singer's demands, and Sensorgram, along with Kimoji, would be 100% owned by Kimberly and her people. David, on the other hand, wasn't signing jack squat, no matter how hard he was shaking in his boots. His attorney later on discovered that the supposed privacy violation wasn't even applicable. But it was too late. Kimoji had been launched, and the fans were quick to download the app, so much so that Kim sent out an apology to Apple. "Apple, I'm so sorry I broke your app store." It was making millions a minute on the App Store, which can be referenced by Kanye West's 2015 song Facts, where he raps, "Kimoji just shut down the App Store and we made $1 million a minute. We made $1 million a minute. Must be nice." David, on the other hand, didn't make a single dime. The letter stated both parties could continue to develop the apps as long as they didn't use Kim's name, KK branding, or likeness, and she didn't use Sensorgram's copyrighted software. David refused to sign over his rights, but that didn't stop one of his other business partners from signing for him. At the time of Kimoji's launch, Kim's popular mobile game, Kim Kardashian Hollywood, had just hit the scene. That, along with the launch of her own special edition emojis and her very own line of Kimoji-inspired fragrances, despite never exactly showing how much she profited, it was speculated that her ventures were garnering hundreds of millions. I'm talking over $100 million. TMZ reported that she made a netted $5 million in the first 5 minutes of her fragrances being on sale alone. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, David's life was falling apart. Billboard after billboard, article after article praising the Kardashians and Jenners for being alleged billionaires and for their savvy business practices, which, like you'd expect, left David feeling distraught every time he caught a glimpse of the family. He'd split from his business partners, and the stress of his finances caused a huge strain in his marriage. Money wasted on legal fees and a patent had put a dent in his financial situation, and he never did get back on the trajectory he once had been on prior to meeting Kim and Chris. Years passed and David never got over this business deal gone horribly wrong. Still confused, depressed, and wanting answers, he set out to find out exactly how, why, and when Kim decided to legally gain full ownership of the apps he created. After much research, David discovered that he wasn't the only person the Kardashians had done this to. The rabbit hole goes deeper than the Grand Canyon, but he took it all the way back to Kim's first initial question. Who the heck is Ryan? Well, Kimberly, David didn't have to answer that question because from the list of receipts that he's been able to whip up, you know good and well who Ryan is. Narayan, nicknamed Ryan, was present at their initial meeting. But how does one prove that in a court of law? Well, several emails and messages show that Kim not only has addressed Narayan as Ryan before, but David, Dan, and Ryan were shown to Kimberly before via several different emails. I told y'all it goes deep. What if I told you, supposedly and allegedly, Kim and her attorney Marty Singer, who was also the attorney for Bill Cosby, mind you, had this all planned from the start? After that friend of Narayan's leaked the screenshot and it got back to Kim, she and Kris saw an opportunity to legally gain full rights over Sensorgram and Kimoji. David believes that they knew all along that David and them wasn't getting a cent from the apps. That original phone call Kim made to David asking who Ryan was nothing but a sham. She knew exactly who Ryan was and was only playing stupid in order to gain legal authority over Kimoji and Sensorgram. At least this is what David believes. David wasn't even aware of the screenshot until after Kim asked him about it. Coming to the realization that he was possibly duped from the start, David wasn't letting his foot off the gas, and with the little resources he had left, filed a $300 million lawsuit against the Kardashians in 2019. He was going after them with vengeance, but unfortunately his first attorney was a little sketchy and seemed starstruck over the Kardashian name. From how he was acting, it was as though he didn't want to go against the Kardashian fam. Perhaps maybe he was paid off by Kris Jenner herself? All we know is he advised David to withdraw the suit after getting into $200,000 worth of debt due to legal fees. A rep for Kim pointed out that David's claims were rejected by an arbitrator and a judge in an LA Superior Court in favor of Kim in 2020, and this sentiment had also been regurgitated earlier on by a New York Post article in 2019. However, that is just not correct. There was never a quote-unquote victory, but a default resolution in favor of Kim and her team due to David dropping out of the arbitration. Now, for those of you who don't know what an arbitration actually is, basically, it's an alternative private dispute resolution that keeps information from leaking outside of judiciary courts and is decided by one or more people. There is no actual judge. After being ill-advised by his attorney to go to arbitration, the Kardashians were trying to pay David off by offering him $100,000 and 5% of Kimoji, which didn't mean much since David's attorney would find out that Kimoji had been in the process of being rebranded to Kim's makeup and beauty line, KKW Beauty. Since David was severely lacking on funds and spent all of his hard-earned money on legal fees, he just couldn't go to bat with the Kardashians and ended up dropping out of the case altogether, which again gave default judgment to Kim. David was ordered to pay Kim $400K in legal fees by an arbitrator in a case he was no longer even a part of. By this point, David was exhausted in all areas of his life. He sold his home to fund all of the legal fees after already putting everything into his businesses, which were once worth $2 million, split from his wife, and contemplated taking his own life twice. Now living out of his 2011 Toyota Prius, David has had to take showers in gyms and took on 3 jobs just to sustain himself: DoorDash, Amazon Flex, and Grubhub. Sending his kids weekly allowance seems to be the only thing anchoring him to this planet, and despite still owing $400K in legal fees, David has nothing else to lose. Silence is no longer an option for him. The stress of it all single-handedly tore him and eventually his family apart, but he's now found the courage to fight back and not let the aftermath of the Kardashian wrath eat away at his soul any longer. With only his iPhone 13 in tow, David took it upon himself to create a website, www.kimkardashianruinedmylife.com, in order to share his story. Thanks to social media, David has been able to cultivate thousands and even millions of views on sites like TikTok, Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram, and the numbers are racking up by the day. In a world where social media has humanity in a chokehold, there's no escaping the Kardashians. We are fed news about the Kardashian-Jenners against our will on the daily, which would only exacerbate the already existing null feeling within someone like David, who had his entire life flipped upside down in one of the worst ways because of greed. Unfortunately, David's story isn't a singular incident when it comes to the Kardashians' shady business practices. After launching their Chroma beauty brand in 2012, Chroma Makeup Studio filed a suit against them since, after all, they'd been using their Chroma, not the one the Kardashians took, trademark for 12 years. And the Kardashian Chroma collection came about only after the original Chroma had been discussing with Kim personally after she wanted to represent and ultimately be the face of the Chroma collection. Another lawsuit claimed that Kris and Kim stole the Kim Kardashian Hollywood mobile game from a small development company, Kung Fu Factory, after proposing to develop a game for Kim for several months. Of course, we can't forget about the time the Kardashians were accused of spending over $120,000 on their supposed friend, the Brandy's management company, American Express Car, and how she so casually ripped off Lori Harvey's skincare line name too, and attempted to trademark the name even though it was already trademarked by someone else and had been for a while. These lawsuits barely scratch the surface on the lengthy list of theft and lawsuits the Kardashians have gotten into over the years. And yes, we'll be making a separate video on it. But I think it's safe to say that the Kardashians are notorious for doing how they did David. With this story still developing, we're suspecting more public outrage regarding David's story once everything unfolds, and we'll be right here to report on it when it does. If you've personally been victimized by the Kardashian clan or want to help David share his story and help him get off the streets, go to www.kimkardashianruinedmylife.com. Forgot to mention the website's banner is actually an original mock-up of Kimoji. Share this video and follow him on the gram, @David Liebensohn. For a full list of receipts, follow him on TikTok, @DLiebensohn. Donate to his Indiegogo and help spread the message. Are we witnessing the end of the Kardashian era? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.